active power transfer, hybrid induction technology. Should I throw another phrase at you that may confuse you, or should I let Andrew do the talking and the explaining of why we're here today? So he joined us on behalf of Kitchenery, and I don't know about you, maybe I'm just a little bit greedy, but I get hungry when I hear that business name. What do you think about? Do you think about appliances? Do you get hungry too? Do you think that maybe you need to go food shopping so that you don't eat out today? I don't want to call anyone out, but for Andrew, this was not always a thought at the forefront of his mind, as he actually studied finance and really wanted to follow in his big brother's footsteps and pursue a career on Wall Street. However, things definitely took a turn, and they worked out for the better, as he actually left his job after much contemplation, much deciding, much weighing out the pros and the cons to really become full-time with Kitchenery. And after you hear about all the success that they've been able to amass, from sponsors to investors to feedback to even interviews and different articles, you'll be just as amazed as I was to really see the success, but you'll also want to wish them nothing but the best as they continue to propel and move forward. But you can actually get involved and help Kitchenery become one of the first cordless technology and the best companies out there when it comes to appliances. But how? Well, tune into episode 153 and you'll find out everything that you need to know, and you may even learn a thing or two, because I sure did. So without further ado, enjoy episode 153, No More Cords. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Down to Business podcast, here with Tamar Turner. You can clear the camera. You can clear the glasses. Yes, we're live. I can touch Andrew. I'm right next to him. I told y'all I love live interviews, and I'm really trying to do more to really put us in that creative space. So reached out to Andrew. He was actually somebody coming in back and forth with WeWork. And so I remember the first day signing them up, it was him and a group of two other gentlemen. I saw the company name, and I was very interested in the company name and kind of what was going on. So some days went past. We had talked to them. I think one of them ran into some key card issues. Maybe something happened. But naturally, we had an event, and so we were talking over some food and some drinks. And, once the drinks get flowing, once food gets flowing, it's easy. I come out of my shell a little bit. So for those of y'all who know me, y'all know I don't have a shell. But so basically, I saw Andrews wearing his shirt with the company logo on it. And so now it really caught my eye. Y'all know I love names. Y'all know I love graphics, intentionality, everything behind it. So we really just sat there and we talked for a little bit. He passed me his business card. He told me what they were doing. And when I tell y'all I was thoroughly impressed, I was thoroughly impressed. Hence why he's sitting right here next to me today. So, we talked a little bit about what I did on the podcast. Very quick turnaround time on his end. And he was actually very fortunate enough to reschedule with me through some things that I had going on. So thank you for that. But very excited to be sitting down with him today. Very excited for y'all to really find out, one, more about his business, his craft, his service, but two, tap in yourself, because I'm pretty sure some people who are hearing me today, y'all spend a lot of time in a certain area of your house that he could be of very much use for. So, Andrew, how you doing today? How's everything?
Good, man. Startup life is always hectic, as you mentioned. Reschedules happen, but I couldn't be more excited to be here. The WeWork building is amazing. If you haven't been here, you should check it out. If you haven't, tuned in before, I'm happy to have you on the first episode. But, overall, I think we're making pretty good traction, and, really excited for the future.
Good. Absolutely. And for those of y'all who don't know, we're downtown Tampa right now. So this is really the place to be. Y'all see it in the back. It may get dark a little bit soon, but this is Florida. We got the trees. We got the light. Luckily, no rain today. It held up for us, so I'm very fortunate for that. But for the people now, I know we're going to have some people from your side. I know we're going to have some people from my side. And my favorite, I know we're going to have some people who know probably neither one of us, but are just coming across the podcast. So to get everybody on an even playing field, to bring everybody up to speed and put everybody on the same page, can you, one, just tell us a little bit about yourself? And then can you, two, just tell us what brings you on down to business today?
Absolutely. So, I come from a long line of entrepreneurs in the industrial steam heating business.
Okay.
My background is actually in finance and sales and IoT software. You guys might have used some of the products that my former company built before, like Shark Ninja's robot vacuum, Keurig smart coffee maker, Kenmore smart washers and dryers. So when I met Akshay a year ago now at a High Tech Connect here in Tampa, it was a natural fit. He's a materials and mechanical engineer by trade. I'm a sales guy. The rest is history.
Go on now. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So with such that background, wow. Once he said Keurig, y'all, my head went off. Y'all know I love my tea and everything. But okay, so with such a background in that industry, what was really the goal at that time when you first kind of studied this, when you were in school and everything of the sort? What did you really want to do? What path did you want to take?
To be, completely honest and in fair transparency, I studied finance in school, and I thought I was going to be a Wall Street guy.
Okay.
My brother's a Wall Street guy, and I was an impressionable 19-year-old, didn't really know where I wanted to go.
Right.
And so I was like, yep, I'm going to follow Big Bro, and I'm going to do that. I shadowed him on the street for a little bit, and I was like, oh my God, this is miserable. This is miserable.
Yeah.
And so coming from a background of a family of engineers, it was sort of a natural fit. For me, it was sort of like math, numbers, talking to people. And then, so, a little bit more on that story of how I met Akshay. I didn't know anybody at the event. And so I went there and I was kind of just, doing this with a guy. And I was like, I really think wireless power transfer is up next. Like, is there anybody here working on that? And the guy was like, I have just the guy you need to meet. And I was like, really? Like shot in the dark. Yeah. Right. And he goes, trust me, you need to meet this guy. And I was like, well, I'm a sales guy. I'm not an engineer. I'm pretty technical, but I wouldn't claim that. And he goes, trust me, this guy needs you. And so, from there, to Akshay's credit, and for those who don't know, that's our CEO, Akshay Buva. He made me pitch him on the spot.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
So, I started introducing myself. I was like, hold on, give me 30 seconds, grabbed another drink. And I was like, all right, let's do this. And so if any of you get the pleasure to meet Akshay, you will know he's a very blunt man. And his nickname, AB, stands for Always Business.
Ooh. Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Always business. Okay, so now I've never had I've had one person tell me to pitch them on the spot about the podcast, and he definitely meant business just the same. So now I could imagine that you in your mind at that point to think of focusing on such a specific niche, a specific industry, and to hear that somebody at an event where you knew nobody was kind of there, and to hear this guy continuously tell you, look, just trust me, just meet him. I promise I got you. Well, I know for you, just everything was kind of going off from there. So, okay. So now you pitched him. Let's walk a little bit more along the journey. So now you pitched him. Where really did the partnership and where did really things come in? Was he already kind of working on things, and did he have stuff set up, and did y'all kind of mingle? What was that what was that flow like?
So he had been working on Kitchenery for 3 years, I believe, at the time. He had started it when he was an automobile parts engineer at Case New Holland in Wisconsin.
Okay.
And so he got into the University of Tampa Masters in Entrepreneurship program. And in doing so, he got into the Spartan Incubator program, which is where we were located before we came to the WeWork building.
Okay.
In doing that, Akshay's a very skeptical guy, engineer by nature. And so it was a hard sell, I'll be honest with you. It was a hard sell. And then, it didn't all come together that day. He left and he was like, I'll be in touch. 2 months go by, I don't hear anything. And I'm like, oh, I blew it. I blew it. So I reached out to him again. He said, yeah, we'll meet up. A few more weeks went by. And then we ended up having coffee down the street at Victory, if you've never been there.
Oh, yeah.
And then from there, I think we had coffee for like 3.5 hours.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and just talked to everything. And so I told him, I was like, listen, I'd love to run sales for you. And he's like, great, absolutely. You're also going to run fundraising. And I was like, I've never done any startup fundraising before. He's like, we'll figure it out together.
AB.
Yeah,
okay.
AB.
Okay.
And so, to date, we've raised almost $500,000.
Wow.
So, it's been really successful. We've got some attention from some international VCs, Dubai, Brazil, here in Tampa. And so, yeah, it's been quite a journey in, complete fairness to everybody, listening and watching, and anybody thinking about going this route, don't feel intimidated. When I first got into some of those rooms, some of those conversations, I felt very much the imposter syndrome, right? And a lot of people are familiar with that. I was just like, how am I going to go in this room and, ask somebody for $250,000? Like, what are you talking about? That's crazy.
Right.
So, the biggest lesson I learned is it's just as easy to close $100 as it is $100,000. It's the same process. It's just you're dealing with people with bigger pockets. A simple story. I met this guy one time and closed him for $25,000 within like 2 hours. And from there, it just gave me the confidence to keep going.
Like that. Yeah. And I even hear too that y'all have an international presence. I know as somebody who, I know for how long it took me to get my first international interview. And that's not to say that I was kind of looking or doing that, but the fact that, it took me so much longer to hit different countries, and now we're in 60 different countries. That's amazing.
Nice.
But I would say that to have that international presence, man, I have to commend that, because I know what that takes. I know to be based in the States, you're going to get your domestic. You're going to get that support. You're going to be able, whether it be the city you're in or the state. But the fact that other nations, other places, even their news is different. Their social media is different. The fact that they're still coming across your content and what you're doing, that's amazing, man. So, okay. Now I hear that you guys are together, that you came under, he gave you even some new roles, some new responsibilities. What exactly does Kitchenery do? Like I said, this is going to be for those people who spend a lot of time in the kitchen. Now, I know that y'all could be in the kitchen for a host of reasons. Some of y'all can't cook, so you're probably just in there more so to like eat, maybe use some appliances, different things like that. But for what y'all do, how can you be of service to others? For somebody who has never heard of y'all company, I'm not telling you to pitch me right now, but give me a little something for the people out there who don't know.
Absolutely. So we invented the world's first cordless kitchen appliances. So a lot of people will immediately go to battery technology, right? You know, handheld battery stuff has been around since the 70s.
Right.
But it's actually active power transfer. So imagine this table right here, if this was a blender or an air fryer or toaster, whatever, you just put it on the surface and it works.
Okay. Wow.
And then it's also hybrid induction technology, so you can actually cook on the same surface. So eggs and bacon over here, coffee over here, toast right here, 4-zone, ready to go.
Wow. Okay. My first question for what you could have done, appliance wise, technology wise, and energy transfer wise, why start in the kitchen? Did you feel like that was are you thinking like me? That's where most people are. That's where most of the appliances are. Was it intentional? Was it just like why start in that area of the household?
So I'll preface this in saying is that we do intend to expand the technology across the consumer device spectrum. So you're going to be able to place your phone on it eventually.
Yeah.
Your laptop, anything below like 2,000 watts, excuse me. So that's the majority of small appliances, like 80 to 90%.
Okay.
So like no microwaves, no fridges, nothing that stands still. So if you imagine it sort of like a bookcase scenario. So you have like basically a pre-built cabinet that fits your appliances perfectly, because our appliances are like roughly 40% less volumetric. Wow. So they're smaller. They fit in those modular spaces. They're stackable. So you pull it out, put it in, and then it goes right back to where you need it. So the dream in the story is a little bit deeper. So Akshay, as I said, was a materials and mechanical engineer at an auto parts company. So he had experience working with some handheld tools that were wirelessly recharged. And he was living in a small apartment in Milwaukee at the time. And he was working from home, COVID. This was actually a little bit pre-COVID, but during that time, he was just getting really frustrated with having all of his appliances on the table. And he was like, why is everything else going cordless and this is not? It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And so, it's the heart of your home, right? It gets the most foot traffic. And it was really an area that was overlooked. I mean, everything else was going cordless, but this was not. I mean, the same blender technology that has existed since the 20s is the same one we have today. Right. And so we're a really product-centric company. Okay. Our model is really this. We want to build the best appliances in the world. And so one day not too long ago, Akshay had this beautiful catchphrase that we like to say. It's shh level technology. So completely silent blender. So think about like when a Tesla zooms by you, you don't hear anything. Right. And like people get really frustrated with like loud leaf blowers, loud blenders. They hate it. And so we're like, okay, no more. Like we're gonna make it zero, not 0 decibel, but near 0 decibel type technology.
Okay. Wow. And I'm even hearing that because you even kind of answered the question, which we'll kind of touch on a little bit later about as far as expansion and hitting different places and different spaces. But even when you told me, when I was talking to y'all, I was just amazed. Like my mouth was just open because you think about something that kind of makes me laugh these days is that I always come across this post on Instagram that says, you're getting older when loud noises just irritate you. And man, that is so true. I don't know how many of my followers can relate to that. Now, loud noises, like where you used to wake up, some days you're running through the house. Now I see why my parents used to just say, just be quiet or just sit still or put the TV on or give you cartoons or something like that. Because wow, if I wake up in the morning and it's too loud, if I wake up to a loud noise, I'm already mad. If I don't wake up naturally, which 9 times out of 10 I'm not, it's always a neighbor, it's always a dog, it's always the landscaping company wants to come at 7 on the dot. Landscaping companies are not late, y'all. They do not miss. Maybe they're late for the other days like the grout or the weed pulling days, but they don't miss lawn mowing days. No. 7 o'clock, Saturday, Wednesday. It doesn't matter. They're there. So I understand the loud noises. I'm irate, especially in the mornings. It's just too much.
So there's actually a little bit of science here that I think will be relevant to the viewers. And I think a lot of people relate to this. When you're driving and a bad storm pops out of nowhere and it starts raining heavily, what's the first thing you do? Turn down the music. Mm-hmm. And the reason is because when you're getting stimulated in multiple senses, your senses are less acute. So when you take away the noise, you can actually literally see better.
I told y'all. See, maybe I didn't say this, but the post was going around too. So something that my friends and I, we were just joking about the other day because we come from up north. So I was born in Philly. I was born in New York, raised in Philly. But potholes, man, I will be blasting a song. I'll be cruising. I'll be on wherever. You hit that pothole, oh man, I got to turn it down. Yeah. I got to listen to the tires. I got to make sure. I got to roll the windows down. But it tunes you in. Even sometimes when I'm not gonna lie, for my people up north, you'll know I don't parallel park as much down here. Parallel parking. When I'm in a tight spot, no backup camera, the music got to come down. I can't be. No, I need everything. But like you said, it gives you that acute more listen. Okay, so I like that. All right, now. How do you explain this to people who just don't understand, who are not on that side of things, who just don't get it? Because for me, like, I wouldn't say I understood necessarily everything that you were telling me. But as you went deeper and deeper into it, even when we were talking upstairs, it started to make sense. As I went through the page, as I went through the website, I'm like, okay, this gets it. But I know you kind of talk to some people, whether it be industry specific, whether it be people who are, this is just not their area of expertise or field of study. How do you, in layman's terms, how do you simplify it for them? What do you say?
Yeah, so we have a couple different ones. So the most simple example is wireless smartphone charging. The physical process is called induction. And so what that means is there's an electromagnetic field that's generated, and then it's picked up by a receiver, and then it can transfer that power. So we'll get a little nerdy here in a second.
Let's do it.
Yeah. And we'll go into how the technology works. So the main difference between the wireless smartphone charger and what we do is active power transfer. So we're not storing the energy. We're transmitting it, receiving it, and then putting it into a motor in real time. And to do all of that seamlessly, especially when you're changing the settings, requires what we call smart frequency modulation, so that you can change the amount that's emitted and the wavelength, so that you can put your blender on high, or you can go to your toaster, and it does this because you don't want any interruptions.
Gotcha.
So in a smartphone charger, that is about 30 to 50 watts, and our system is tested to about 1200. So it's like 30 to 50 times more powerful. Yeah. So the process of induction to generate heat is similar. So in an induction pan, and this is where a little bit of the magic comes into play. So in induction, the residual heat is very, very minimal. So you can take a pan off and you can touch it and the heat's not there. So the way that works is they're called dipoles. So in that magnetic material within the pan, these dipoles, when the magnetic field hits it, they vibrate and they don't have anywhere to go. So what happens is the heat comes off and then it's in the pan, and that's how you can cook on it.
Gotcha. Wow. Did y'all get that? Y'all got that? That was wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. This takes me back to my days where I should have been paying attention to science just a little bit more. Science wasn't my least favorite subject. My teachers were just hard, y'all. So it was hard but as you keep saying induction, I'm just thinking about those classes where we learned about all that, and the transfers and the back and forth. So I get that. All right. I guess I want to take it a step further now when you said like running at one time. All right. So I think about, you're not supposed to have everything running all at once. The microwave, the ovens, the blenders, the everything like that.
Right.
How does that work with your system? Can multiple things be all on the same? Can multiple things have that APT, that active power transfer? All right, y'all. Hey, if y'all see me on the Kitchenery executive board, they taught me some things today. Come on now, I can do sales.
Yeah. So let's start with this. So our primary focus in the market right now is the luxury space. So yachts, RVs, jets, high-end hotel chains. And the reason is because induction is more efficient than traditional radiation or convection cooking, because the majority of the heat gets lost in the atmosphere.
Right.
But again, as I explained earlier, the heat is in the pan. Exactly. So these people are very conscious of the electricity, because on a boat or an RV, you don't have unlimited electricity unless you're plugged into the dock or the campground. Mm-hmm. So every electron counts. Right. So, I wouldn't advise that you try to run everything at one time. Right. But again, with the efficiency ratings and the smaller appliances, that's our value proposition, that you can do more than what you're doing right now. Gotcha. And there was another point that I was going to bring up, but I lost it. But it'll come back to me. It's all good.
Okay. So I want to take the point of what you just said now, the area of focus that you have, the yachts, the RVs, everything of the sort. Will your approach and will your, I guess, creation and modeling of the product or of the service change as you focus on like commercial, residential, retail, anything like that? Because to me, this process doesn't change no matter where you are, what you do. But I feel like the responsive. So like you said, whereas you would worry about in an RV your electricity,
Right.
electrons and everything like that. Will I have those? I'm not going to have those same worries in a commercial space.
Right.
What does that change on Kitchenery's end though, as far as how you make the product?
Yeah, and this actually just brings me back to what I was thinking about. So right now we're working on a project with a major American boat OEM, and they want a completely like seamless and basically like plug-free design within the galley. So we're integrating it actually under the table. So you can transfer the power through a material about 2 to 3 inches as long as the material is non-metallic. So that's like one value proposition. They want the galley space to be completely outlet free. Yeah. So like that's one of the value propositions there.
Okay.
So like in a kitchenette, for example, in a high-end hotel chain, they're more interested in like auto shut-off features so that the coffee doesn't overspill and like fire, electrocution risk.
Okay.
In an RV, they're more worried about trying to fit an entire kitchen into a very, very small space. So they're more worried about like the modular and stackability and being able to fit in the counter space. In the jets, it's more about a safety factor.
Gotcha.
So like electromagnetic shielding, things of that nature. So the value proposition is similar in a lot of the areas, and it is slightly different depending on the application. And we sort of addressed this. So like I said, we have the under the countertop version. We have the seamlessly integrated in the countertop version. So like a lot of people have seen induction cooktops, like the smooth glass. Yeah, exactly. And then we also have a version that sits on top of the counter that you can plug in and move. So let's say you want to take it with you on the go.
Gotcha.
You want to put it, we're looking into some stuff like the new Tesla Cybertruck and the Rivian truck. They have a camping version, so like they have an induction cooktop that like slides out. Wow. So you can put it into that.
This is crazy.
Yeah,
this stuff is so advanced, man. It's just crazy. You think about the stove. To me, one of the most impressive things, like this was something I was actually looking for in my newest place of residence, are the stoves with just the eye, not the actual like grates that you got to take out. To me, that was the most impressive thing ever. Like the fact that this one circle can just get so high and I can just throw it on. And now we're talking about we don't even need plugs. We just sit it there. We can take it. It can slide out. It's coming out of the trucks. Man, this is amazing. Okay, but I also think about marketing, branding, promotion, everything. I think about how a lot of people, especially in this day and age, are very much in the if it ain't broke, don't fix it era. So for people who who like their plugs and their gas lines, who may not even know how to work it if something goes wrong, but live and die by it, how do you market this to people? How do you promote this to people? And especially with it, but I also kind of think too that you guys don't replace every single appliance. You're more so focused on the smaller things as well. So that could add some ease to it. But for people who, like I said, are just conventional, old-fashioned, traditional, don't want to go against the norm, how does that work? How does marketing really work for that?
Yeah, so a little bit more complex. We are introducing something new, so the price tag is a bit premium.
Okay.
But we're sort of taking the Tesla approach, right?
Okay.
So they introduced the Roadster first, which was for the premium market.
Gotcha.
And then they took that money and then they built the Model S, right? Mm-hmm. So everywhere down the line, they get more money and then they bring the cost down to the mass market. So eventually, we'll be competing with your Mr. Coffees, KitchenAid, stuff like that.
Absolutely.
But, the premium market is what really drives innovation because they have a disposable income to do so. And actually one of the, I would say, hardest marketing pieces for us is changing consumer behavior. When you're a kid, right, you're taught don't touch the stove, stop, it's hot. Right. Now it doesn't exist anymore. Right. So how can you teach a 3-year-old, like, okay, you can't touch this stovetop, but this one's okay.
This one's all good.
Yeah, you can't place your coffee maker on this one, but this one's okay. Right, yeah. Gotcha. So changing consumer behavior is challenging. There's a lot of education that goes into it, webinars, seminars, that type of stuff. But, we don't think it's impossible or we wouldn't be doing it.
Hey, make the impossible. It may seem impossible to somebody else or another model or another brand, but AB and AC here, they all go. AB and AC, I don't even know if y'all thought of that, but if y'all didn't think of that, we gotta trademark that. But all right, now y'all have come together, y'all are moving, y'all are thinking about different things, different spaces, different places. With you guys being here in Tampa, how has that what has that really done for your growth trajectory, for what you're really thinking about? Because I hear the other countries, I hear everything like that, but now that you guys are here, came from Wisconsin. I'm glad he got out of Wisconsin. I know we may have some Wisconsin people tapping in. I don't really know what's in Wisconsin though. But now that you guys are here, now that you guys have saw the market, adjusted accordingly, what does it really look like moving forward as far as growth, as far as where you're moving to and trying to expand to?
Yeah, so that's actually a really good question. There's a couple one. So the first one is we're about to sign a contract with a military contractor to look at some autonomous drone stuff and rapid recharge.
Okay.
So McDill being right here,
Yes.
obviously they're the head of CENTCOM,
Absolutely.
so they spend lots of money on this type of stuff. As I mentioned earlier, we are at the University of Tampa Spartan Incubator, and so all of the connections that we made through UT are invaluable. A lot of our investors are UT alum. And some of the biggest names I won't name drop here because investors are finicky about that kind of stuff.
I get it. Oh, trust me.
But guys with names on their buildings, you can do the math. But they once they hear that you went to the same school or the same professors or those people vouch for you. Exactly. So we truly believe that Tampa is really the next tech hub. I don't know if you saw this a while back. I think it came from Tampa Business Journal. But Tampa owns 25% of all tech jobs in Florida.
I saw that. I get their emails almost every day because I feel like Tampa is really just little by little making it happen. But I saw that. Yeah. I did not know that.
Yeah, Florida, Miami is becoming the new Manhattan. I would argue that we're becoming the next Silicon Valley. That's a little early to say. I'm
going to support that argument, though.
Yeah. But yeah, obviously we got, the weather. Everyone talks about that.
For sure.
We have great pro-business policies, right? It's very easy to start a business here, no income tax, that kind of thing. Yeah. And so Tampa's just an amazing ecosystem. Also the port. So like when we have overseas manufacturing partners, it's very easy to, them to ship it here. So it's really got everything that you would really look for, and the talent. Akshay, he's from Gujarat, India. My CTO is from Sevilla, Spain. Paulo, my business growth operations manager, is from Brazil. So I'm actually the only American on the team.
Ooh.
But so it's really becoming a hub. Obviously you have USF and their great engineering program. Sure. It's really a hub for all things next. That's the way I would look at it.
I love it. Even like I said, I'll be 3 years. Honestly, 3 years in Tampa as of when this interview will drop. So it's just like to even see when I came in the middle of a pandemic almost, and to even see just the contrast from I came from up north. Up north, there was a curfew.
Yep.
It was a ghost town.
Yeah.
Businesses were closed. Looting was very much so prevalent and everything. I come down here. It's like COVID was at the bottom of the totem pole. They're worried about so many. They're worried about the alligators before COVID. So to me, it was a night and day difference. Granted, we were still masking up and everything like that, but just the temperature out here, it was totally different. I remember working at Target and having to carry a slip that was signed by my store manager saying that, hey, if the police pull me over, because after a certain hour, you just shouldn't have been on the street. But hey, if they pull me over, hey, I just got off work, I'll give you this. It was here, everybody's outside, everybody's going out, having fun, supermarkets, whatever you want to do. So no, to hear that, but to now think about back then and to now see all the technological advancements, university advancements, manufactural advancements, to be near the port, to be near the Air Force Base, to now have lived in South Tampa, Brandon, and then back to South Tampa, I've saw the contrast of kind of what's going on out here. All right, so with any business, even as you kind of spoke about in the beginning, come trials, tribulations, come difficulties, come hard things, everything like that. What would you say is the most difficult part about what it is that y'all do?
Well, from the technical side,
if anything, though, if nothing is difficult, you can speak.
There's a lot of difficulties. So from the technical side, creating the software between the transmitter and the receiver is very, very difficult. And that's something that we keep very, very close to it. And it's really the key where we have our IP. And that's what differentiates us from the other competitors out there. From my end, I had a corporate job just like everybody else for a long, long time. And, it took a lot of convincing for me to come in full time. It's a big risk, but I couldn't be happier. I've been on the team for about 9 months, and I've been in full time for just about a month now. And the amount of progress that we've made, just because I don't have to waste brain cycles thinking about the other thing, has been tremendous.
Wow.
We've broken into every single industry that we targeted now, and so I wouldn't say that like my job is terribly difficult. Sales is just let's have a conversation, see if you like it, find value. Okay, what's the price? from the fundraising, it's really a lot of cocktail parties and dinners and that kind of thing. But I would say the most difficult thing is finding your own belief. Yeah, I'm a big believer in mirror talk.
Come on now.
Absolutely. And so I do it every single day. And to get myself to go up to people who have had multi-billion-dollar exits in their companies and tell them like, hey, I'm the next you. Like our company's next. Like believe in me. Give me your cash. Took a long time, and it took a lot of repetitions, and it took a lot of just like, you can do this, dude. Like you got this. Like if you really want to do this, like there's no other option. And that like do or die mindset is everything. Like there's no room for failure, and the work ethic that you have to have. Like, I mean, I know everybody talks about hustle culture and grind, and like, don't get me wrong, you have to do that, but you also need your time away. But I really think it changes you in the way you look at work and the way you look at things that become work. So like, it's not like you have someone telling you, okay, get this, and this done. Like that's not how me and Akshay and Paolo work. It's like, what's your next idea to make this happen? What strategy are you going to have to make this approach? What are you working on now that's going to allow us to scale? Like, and you really start thinking differently, and you really start realizing that you can monetize every interaction. Like from the person you meet in the elevator to the people you're talking to at the gym. And it's funny because people make fun of me because everywhere I go, I hand them my business card. Like, and they're like, dude, are you always doing business? And I'm like, in some form or another, right? Because I want, and I had I would say a really big aha moment about this. I was at the bar a couple weeks back, and this guy taps me on the shoulder, and he was like, "Hey, I know you," and I was like, "I'm sorry, man. I meet a lot of people. Like, what's your name, whatever?" And he goes, "You're the Kitchenery guy." Ooh. He's like, I saw your pitch at 1 million cups, and I was like, and it was amazing. I was like, oh my God, I'm getting known for what I do in a big city. Like I come from a small town. I'm a PA boy myself, Amish country, but yeah, like, you know, a small town, everybody knows you, right? You know, they know your family, the grandmother, whatever. And like here, when I moved to Florida, I didn't know anybody. I lived in Orlando first, and then I moved to Tampa in 21. And like, I set out to make a name for myself. Like, I was like, I'm going to do this, like, no matter what. And I remember thinking to myself, I like started following all the publications, started getting into some of the networking groups. And I told myself, I was like, I'm going to get in the Tampa Bay Business Journal. Well, this year, Tampa Bay Business Journal named us one of the hottest startups of 23. So very exciting. You know, one of my next goals was to get in Tampa Bay Business and Wealth. We just got an article written about us. It's about to drop probably when this podcast drops. We've been in CP Catalyst, Tampa Bay Inno. We were in the March Madness Bracket Challenge this year.
Okay.
So the next one to knock down is the Times. So if you're listening,
come on now. Hey, I know we got
make
some,
an intro.
I know we got some time connections somewhere.
Okay. So yeah, it's just you can really make it happen. I heard this quote. I think it was from Mark Anderson, the A16 guy, and he said, "You will be amazed how quickly the universe reconfigures itself when you don't think about anything else." And when I say I don't think about anything else, like from the time I wake up in the morning, I'm getting a text messages from one of the guys or a Teams message or whatever, until like, you know, when I'm in the gym, I'm talking to the trainers about it, and I'm like approaching people there, and then like come to work all day, and then like, you know, we're just like anybody else. We got to go blow off some steam too. But like anywhere we go, actually just like pitch them the public offer, like pitch the weed butter, like give them a card. And so you really gotta adjust your mindset. And you know, here's the thing, that's not for everybody. And you know, I understand and respect everybody who just wants to work their job and then go home and relax. Absolutely. I get that. I was that way for a long time, but for me, it eventually wasn't enough. Like I had a really good job working for my former company. I was making some pretty good dough. Like life was easy. I was working from home, got a lot of freedom. But then like, you know, I lived that lifestyle for long enough. I was like, okay, like I've been to most of the restaurants. I've been to most of the bars. I've been to most clubs. I was like, I need something else. And so like, for me, like the edge is what really keeps me driving. And it for me, like technology and specific, like you're working for something that doesn't exist yet. It's, you know, I go to a lot of these events. I meet tons of lawyers, tons of finance guys, advisors, whatever. And like what they do is, you know, don't get me wrong, there's some innovation there, and I don't want to discount the profession by any means, but for large in part, it's been solved, right? They're just repeating the process, finding new clientele and scaling their business and marketing a little bit better. In this realm, like you really have to create, like it's like artistry in a lot of ways. And, you know, a lot of founders and tech guys get caught up in like, oh, I'm the Picasso of technology, whatever. And I don't claim to be that by any stretch of the imagination, but I would leave that to the design guys on the team. But for me, it's always like what can I tell this person that they haven't heard yet, or like they haven't understood yet, or they haven't seen yet? Like, how can I frame it in a way that makes sense to whatever like they're experiencing? So like, let's just say I'm pitching a 40-year-old housewife versus, a 60-year-old retiree versus a fellow like, 30-year-old guy. It's all different, and it's all the same message with just a different little spin and frame.
Got you. And I also think, well, one, congratulations on all of that. And
Thank you.
I love the
Thank
podcast
you.
just because we speak things here too. So time is on the way. It's already really done. It's just waiting for you to get there. I'm a big believer, and I can't remember which episode did this for me, but I'm pretty sure it was probably a few of them that touched on it. But you always think with the end goal in mind, and you work back from there.
Yeah.
When I heard that, I thought totally different now because, there's nothing wrong with taking things step by step by step, but that's all just what you see.
Mm-hmm.
If you're thinking about where you want to be, like you said, something that doesn't even exist yet, that grind, that grit, that determination is totally different. What I also kind of hear with you and what I think propelled you and put you in that space from the mirror talk to everything like that was when you made that shift from the 9 to 5 to full time. I feel like with a 9 to 5, a lot of times, like you said, life can be good. We can be fine. We can be okay. We can live the life, do the regular rigmarole of a day.
Yeah.
Once you, like you said, once you got convinced after some convincing, because it takes some convincing. I don't care how good of a guy you are. Shout out to AB, but it takes some convincing.
Yeah.
Once you get to that point, you also realize this is make or break. It's not a definite. It's not a guarantee. It's not your every 2 weeks I'm going to get that check, or every week I'm going to get that check, or every month. It's, if I don't promote this or market this or brand this, or if this team doesn't come with that, or if we don't pitch that, or if we don't do that, things start to get affected a little bit. So
Absolutely.
I also think too that once you put yourself in that grind, you put your best foot forward. You knew. And then once it became easy for you, you were like, okay, I'm waking up, I'm doing the mirror talk. The only difference between the guy with $100 and $100,000 is just the person. He has deeper pockets. That's all. It's the same person. It's the same conversation, the same talk. And once you do, but it's not easy to do that. Once you do that over and over and over again, there were some people who, I was interviewing. I'm not a shy guy by any means. Couldn't you tell? But there were some people who, when I first started, my interviews were friends. It was mutual friends. It was social media people. When I started talking to some people and I come across their page and you got 10K followers and 8 egg. I didn't even know what a successful exit was. Big shout out to my guy Travis Steffen for putting me on that. But it was just like I was just so intimidated by some of these people because it was just like, do I have to adjust a certain way or do I have to give them that? And then after the interviews, they're telling me, "Bro, that was fun," or "I had a good time," or "You did really well. You asked me some things that I never even been asked before." I said, Maybe I can do this. Maybe but it's that repetition, but it takes that experience too. So like you said, the pitching and things like that. Whereas you did the sales, you did everything like that. You didn't do sales for what you're doing now. You didn't have to explain energy transfer to people who are probably looking at you with glazed eyes and have no idea what's going on. So I really love to hear that, man. And I'm so excited just now that I feel like I've learned a different side of what this business is and what y'all kind of do. So thinking about the business, I kind of want to dive a little bit deeper into teams and production. So I heard you speak about there are different, obviously, roles and responsibilities that come with Kitchenery and everything that y'all do. What does this really look like as a business? I've heard you talk about CTOs. I've heard you talk about CFOs, manufacturing, product production. What does that really look like, the business operations? Like, how does the wheel keep going?
Yeah. So let me take a step back to last year.
Okay.
So before I came on the team, Akshay and our CTO, Augustine, entered the TechStars program. Are you familiar with TechStars?
I am, yes.
Okay. So they won the TechStars program, and this one in Baltimore was hosted by Stanley Black & Decker. So obviously a major player in the appliance space.
Absolutely.
And so they were our first institutional backers.
Okay.
And so they gave us some nice cash. And that was really where they're like, okay, we can take this from a hand-built, minimum viable product to a really scalable business. Okay. So that was, I think, their first belief moment. And then I'm going to talk about my belief moment, and then I'll get into the business here, and because I think it's relevant to the So back in February of this year, we launched our public offering at Synapse Innovation Summit. And this local guy, again, I'm not going to name drop, but he's a billionaire. And he came to our booth and he said, I can easily see you guys having an 8 or 9 figure exit from this. And I was like, my first thought was okay, how much cash are you getting? Right. But he doesn't really invest. His investment thesis is not really in consumer hardware, so it wasn't for him. But I ended up going to his place in St. Pete. That's like a $25 million mansion for like the after party. And I mean, this place is absurd. I mean, like infinity pools, like Raris, that kind of guy. And I was like, I'm sitting there and like, I'm with AB and I'm just like, dude, like, what? Like, we don't deserve to be here type thing. Like, this is insane.
Right.
And, and I was just talking to him and I was like pitching him and he's like, hold on a second. Hands me his business card. He's like, text me anytime you want. And like, he's been a great advisor and mentored me ever since. And, I had another one of those guys who we met through UT and same type of thing. Like, and those guys just want to give back. Like, they're in their 60s and like they've made it and they're like, hey, I want to help you get to where I'm at. Like, I've been through your journey.
Right.
So in January of this year, we attended the RV Super Show here to network with some RV manufacturers. And the largest aftermarket solutions company for RVs in the country approached us and was like, we want to sell your stuff. So they have all of their facilities in the RV manufacturers, like at the manufacturing level.
Gotcha.
And they control like 90% of the market. It's very, very small place. Like they do like a lot of different services. So like painting, industrial coating, chassis, repairs, all that kind of stuff.
Gotcha.
And so this was very early on for me. I've only been on the team since November. And again, I'm still working my day job. So I take a day off work. We go at 10, talking to these guys, network with some other people. And I was still like, okay, like this sounds cool. And then about 2 to 3 months ago, they emailed us and they're like, hey, we want to come to your facility. And we sat down with them. And just to give like everybody a little bit of perspective on the numbers, there's like 50,000 RVs in the U.S. produced every year in Class A. So in the RV market, there's like ultra premium, Class A, Class B, Class C, and it goes up and down depending. But like some of those crazy ones go for like $2 million. Yeah. So these guys are like, okay, well, we have all the connections, all the distribution, all the logistics. Yeah. Like, tell me when we can get it, and like, tell me when we can get it for. And so like we told them, and we're like and still in some negotiations and stuff like that, and it's part of the game, but. When I sat in that meeting, I came out of it and I was like, oh my God, dude, like this could be big. Yeah, that was my first like, okay, like this is for real.
This could be the one.
This is for real. Like as they say as an entrepreneur, like you can fail as many times, you only gotta be right once. Yeah.
One time.
Yeah. And so that was really for me like, okay, I need to quit my job. And I left a fat commission check on the table because I was like, I need to do this now. And my old boss actually, I thought I was going to take it really bad, but he actually took it really, really great. And he's like, when I told him I was quitting, he was like, how do you feel? And I was like, a little scared, a little nervous, a little excited. He was like, good, do whatever gets your heart racing. He's like, because the number one regret people have on their deathbed is what would I do if I was not scared? And I tell that to everybody who asks me. I actually ran into a guy recently. He invented this cart spraying system to sanitize for like grocery stores. So you push your cart through it, it sanitizes it. It came out during COVID. He was about to land a fat contract with Walmart. Rented a limo for his whole team. They went out partying. Walmart pulled out at the last second. Yeah, abysmal. And so now, he's doing some sales stuff on the side. And we were talking, and he's like, this guy is probably like 10 years my senior. He's like, do you think I should go all in? I was like, absolutely. I was like, if you don't go all in now, I was like, you will regret every day for the rest of your life.
Absolutely.
And we've stayed in contact, and he's probably going to be an investor. So like that was really, really big for me. And then I truly believe the Tampa community is special. Everybody says that about their city and their town, and I get that, and everyone's got to rep their city. I understand, but the amount of people that were encouraging me that I never met before is crazy. So like, I will shout a couple of these people out because they've backed me already and they're comfortable. We've talked to them about it. So like, one of my biggest supporters, his name is Ben Cedar. He reps Phoenix Portfolio Partners. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's founded like 15 companies. He's younger than me, and he's just an animal. And so I approached him at the new Venture Expo at UT, which we won. And I was like, listen, man, I've seen you move at multiple different events here. I've seen who you're associated with. Like, please come my investor and like mentor me. And he was like, absolutely. Another one I want to shout out is Ken Palmella. He runs RevStar. They're extremely successful.
Yeah, no RevStar.
Yeah. Everyone in Tampa knows RevStar.
No RevStar.
Yeah. IoT software consulting company. And it was actually funny when we first met each other. I was selling an IoT software platform, as I mentioned, and he was like, oh, like, do you know these guys? And I was like, yeah. He's like, oh, I built their platform for them. And I was like, wow, small world.
Look at that, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Andrew Hartnett, Formula for Success, former Google exec. We met him, I believe it was at Synapse. I believe Paulo pitched him on the spot, and he was like, "I'm all in." Came in with an investment. He's been on multiple podcasts with us. We're about to do another one with him. He's just been fantastic. And so, like, these are guys like, in their 20s and 30s, like doing big things. And like when I just see that, I'm like, oh my God, I could do this too. And it's crazy because these guys are hella busy, right? They got lives, they got girls, they got kids, and businesses. And I'll shoot them a text at like 2 p.m. on a Wednesday, and right back they're like, okay, let's do this, and this, get it done, like get back to me. And so it's crazy because coming from a small town, like you always look up to people in the city, right? Like, oh, they got the big towers and they have all the big money, and like I was really intimidated by that. Like I don't know what it is. Like even like growing up playing sports, I always thought the kids in the city were just somehow inherently better than me. Like their families had more money or they had more access to the pros or like whatever. And I really made it a point to make sure that I was going to network with the best. And like, I'll share some tips here for some people who are interested in this. Like Tampa Bay Business Journal comes out with the Power 100 every year. I made sure to add every single one of those people on LinkedIn. I mean, these people have no business connecting with me. They'll connect with me. I message them. Some of them message back, some don't. They say like, it's always roll the dice, but if you roll snake eyes, like you hit a home run. And if you don't, nothing happens.
Nothing happens, right?
And so I when I was coaching some of my interns at UT, one of the first things I made them do, I was like, who's the most powerful person you know? And they would like give me a thing. I was like, reach out to them. Most people don't even try. And so I remember this. My goal, like, I've managed a couple people, but I never really had interns, especially like, fresh out of college. They were actually still in. They didn't have a lot of experience. And I made it my goal to make sure every single one of them closed a deal. And I remember this specifically. Shout out to Ryan and Max, by the way. But we were, I believe, like 1 week left in the semester. It was my last week with them. And I told them during the last week, like, we're going to have some fun. Like, they're working, basic for free, some of them for credit. Right. And I was like, and 2 of them hadn't closed the deal yet. And I was like, we are going to sit on these phones till 5 o'clock on Friday until you close the deal. And I just remember sitting there and making them dial hundreds and hundreds of times. And I told them, I told them, I was like, listen, like, if you can do this and you can close somebody that you barely know or never met on the phone, you can sell anything. And it's funny because they'll still like get back to me today and they'll be like, yo, I do mirror work every day. Or they're like, yo, like the stuff that you taught me is so much more valuable. Because I told them, I was like, listen, you're going to go get your first job. I was like, you're going to be put in a cubicle. I was like, you're going to make $250 a day and that's going to be it. And your boss is going to check in on you once a week. And like, that's going to be it. I was like, I'm trying to give it to you real. I was like, I've done that. I've been there. So I didn't just make them like do my scut work, for lack of a better thing. I tried to bring them into like all the big investor meetings. I tried to walk them through the entire sales process. I tried to teach them the technology. I was like, I want you to come out of this knowing how to run a business. I was like, because I see the talent that you guys have now, and I want you to take that and do whatever you want with it. I was like, you want to run a business? Great. If you don't, great. But I was like, I want you to know that you have this ability because, when I was 22, I came out of college thinking like, oh, everyone's just going to offer me the world because I had a degree.
Man, I thought the same thing. I had 2 degrees at 22.
Yeah. Nothing, right? Yeah. I actually first worked for my family when I came out of school and learned the hard way that, don't get me wrong, love my family business. They're great, but it just wasn't for me.
Yeah.
And then like, I found going into the job market, and this was back in 2013, 2014, wasn't fantastic. I was a property manager at a storage facility, and it was like abysmally boring because I just sat there and like most people made reservations online. So I was really just like a security guard, for lack of a better term. And I still have this photo, and I have a phrase. I would strap on the backpack vacuum. I would have to sweep all the things, and I have to like clean the toilets out and stuff. And I was like, I went to school to like clean toilets. Like, oh my God, like what is going on here? And so like anytime I feel unmotivated or like, not feeling today, whatever, I always tell myself it's this or back to the vacuum backpack.
Back to the vacuum backpack. Like in perspective for you.
Yeah, like take a choice, bro. Like not that I would have to go probably do that now because, I have some sales experience and on the enterprise level, but like, absolutely. And so, I want to say this because I think this is very valuable too. I struggled in the job market for a long time. From probably 22 to 27, I had no real success. Like I didn't make a lot of money. I bounced from job to job. Like I couldn't find anything that really satisfied me. Like like I said, I was a property manager. I sold cars. I did high interest rate loans for the subprime market. I worked as a bank teller. I've done a lot of different things.
All, right.
Yeah. And, I specifically like remember, so I was a bank teller at like 27 because I tried to start a business before, and it was a long story, but it like didn't work out because the guy I was going to go business with ended up getting into some trouble. And so I was like, I just need a job. And I remember being a bank teller, and I was serving some of my friends who had like more promising careers, like at the time. So like they were like pharmacists, some were doctors, like that kind of stuff. And I remember my one friend looking at me, and he was like, "Dude, what are you doing?" He's like, you have so much more talent than this. And I just like, I went home that day and I was like, oh my God, he's right. Like, I can't let this be it. And like, that was actually that. And like COVID were like my impetus is to move here. I was like, I need to get out of a small town. I need to like stop doing this. And I'll also say this one, I remember when I left the bank, so I got promoted at the bank. I was doing client services, and my dad, he said he was, so bless my dad's heart, just so we're clear, but he's a corporate guy, and it is what it is. But he said like, "Oh, what are you doing? Like, if you would just stay there, you've been running the place in 10 years." And I was like, "Dad, I don't have 10 years. Like, I don't have 10 years to wait to like that, right? It's just not." And like, I've always had that entrepreneurial bug. Like, I saw it growing up. I literally saw my dad and my uncle build a business from literally like the garage, like building pumps out of a garage, to like, a fairly decent size like manufacturing business with a full factory and like international presence. And so I saw that hustle and that grind and like what it takes, like traveling and like, meetings, all that kind of stuff. And I was like, this is for me. But like, my dad is the VP of marketing, my uncle's CEO. Again, no disrespect to my father, but like, I was like, I want to be CEO. So like, I'm not CEO right now, but like, I plan to get there in the future. Absolutely. Like, there's always things post Kitchenery, but like, yeah, it's, I truly believe, I think it is something that you're born with. Now, I don't want that to be misconstrued though, because I don't think a lot of people recognize they have it until something happens in their life where they realize they have it. Like for me, one of the first things I realized I had it, I sold a PDF that I created online. I literally was like 10 sales secrets. I only sold like a handful of them, and it was for like $10 a pop. So it was like $40. But I was like, this took me 20 minutes to create. Right. I was like, somebody I don't know bought this from me. I was like, this can't be that hard. Right. Like, now I'm selling more high ticket stuff, more advanced, a little bit more to involve with it. Right. But like that for me was like, I got this. Like it's in there. So like whoever's watching this, if you're thinking about taking the leap, like dip your toe in. And then like once that toe's in and you find that, like, put your foot in. And then like when you're scared to like put your waist in. Again, what would you do if you weren't afraid?
And keep in mind, y'all, what I feel like sometimes what gets misconstrued in what he's saying is that sometimes people just think going all in means head first. You're just diving in. Like he said, you have to start small. You have to do little by little. He said that he didn't it wasn't the first conversation that he had about Kitchenery or with AB or anything like that just sold him, and he quit his job and everything like that. He even talked to his boss, and he kind of had some apprehensions and things like that. So there's an entire process to how he got to where he was. So I also think that people have to understand that, but not only understand that, but appreciate yours. You could hear Andrew's story and think that, okay, I like a lot about what he's talking about, but you could be in a totally different industry. You could have a totally different upbringing. You could have a totally different just drive and what motivates you and everything like that. Are you going to connect? Are you going to go on LinkedIn and connect with those people though? Are you going to reach out to the most powerful person in the world who you think it is? Because now I'm interested. Now after this interview, I'm going to go think about that, and I'm going to reach out, and now I'm going to look at Tampa Bay Business Journal, everything like that. Okay, you got something?
Yeah. So this is a good one. And this guy, for the record, this guy has not responded to me, but he did connect with me. Okay. So I saw an article, and people laugh at me. I'm a fiend for LinkedIn connection. Okay. Every time I meet someone, I'm like, on LinkedIn. But so I saw this guy. He's a private wealth manager for JP. Okay. And he's in their ultra high net worth individual section. He manages like 700 families worth like, I think it's a crazy number. It's like $4 trillion. Sheesh. Like, everyone knows that the wealth is concentrated at the top. There's no secret. Right. But I was like, I saw him featured in this article, and I was like, this dude is on LinkedIn? Like, why is this dude who's managing $4 trillion for like the biggest bank in the world on LinkedIn? Mm-hmm. And sent him a connection request. He added me. I immediately went to pitch him. He didn't read it,
Yeah.
but it doesn't matter.
Right.
In the way I look at it, LinkedIn is a channel just like YouTube is. Now, anytime this guy has a free moment, he's scrolling. There's a chance that he might see something that I post, and he might be like, "Huh, this seems cool," and he might know somebody else. And they talk a lot about like the 6 degrees of separation, right? And in the internet era, it's more like 3. So I'll share just a couple more. So I won't name drop the first 2 guys because they're more low key, and a lot of people like it that way, and I'm fine with that. It's not me. I'm a media guy. I have aspirations of
come on now.
Yeah, but so AB messaged this guy 4 times before he responded, and he finally was like, "How did you find me? Nobody knows of me. He has a pretty successful estate business, but." He finally, the 4th one was like, "I appreciate your persistence. I'll meet with you." So he meets with us. He introduces us to another guy who happens to do all the political mailings for the state of Florida. And so he's like, "Hey, have you guys looked into some state funding?" And so by the time this drops, I hope this comes true. He's like, "Well, I think I can get you the governor's ear." And I'm like, "You're gonna get me on a platform with Ron DeSantis?"
Yeah, right.
I'm like, "Don't give me that platform." but also I'm like, "Oh my god, it's really that easy." Why not say easy? But if you put in the time and the effort, and you actually reach out to a lot of these power players, you'll realize that they're just like us, right? Yeah, they have aides and assistants, and you might have to jump through a few hoops. But my brother sent me this one. You like this one? What's the difference between you and a billionaire? You put your pants on the same way in the morning. The difference is that he goes and hops on his Learjet afterwards. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm over here trying to be all critical.
Yeah, no, it's very, very simple.
I like that.
And so, you really have to keep yourself in that mentality. And, what I've learned associating with a lot of those guys is they have the same struggles and thoughts. And, I know a lot of people have, said that a billion times on the internet. But, it is crazy. It's crazy how much of these guys are around in your everyday circles and you don't know it because, they want to be. Another rich person I know said this to me. They said, "Every rich person I know just wants to be normal. They just want to be approached and talked to. They want to, hear your ideas. They don't want to, sure, they love to get pampered and go to resorts and stuff like that. But when they're walking on the street or they're having coffee down, whatever, no, they're just like, hey, what's up, whatever." And so for me, that was really eye opening moving here because I'd be talking to some of these guys and they're like, "Oh, I got to get my PJ and hop down to Miami." And it's almost interesting how they think about things. Here's a one I always think. People always say "Oh, how far is it here from Miami?" 4 hours.
4 hours.
Right? Not in a Learjet. It's 45 minutes.
Yeah,
and so then that's the way they talk about things.
Wow.
Right? Yeah. How far is here Miami? 45 minutes. Yeah. And so there's the great quote from I think it's from the Wall Street movie in 1985 where he says. 50 to 100 million liquid gives you the ability not to waste time. Where, the jet is on call all the time and you can just go where you need to when you need to. You don't wait for the airport and all that stuff. And to everybody listening, this isn't a pitch to, go try to, be a billionaire tomorrow. But most of what a lot of people don't realize is don't get me wrong, there's a ton of people who inherit their wealth, but most of the new wealth is created. Most of the multimillionaires and that kind of stuff, especially in the tech era, is created. Right. And people don't realize how much power and leverage you can get on the internet. They really don't. I don't even realize it. I have a pretty decent following on LinkedIn. I don't do any major media podcasts or stuff like that, but it's insane. I'll tell you another one. We just had one of the big 4 tech companies reach out to us and was like, "Hey, we saw your company trending on LinkedIn. We have this Launchpad program. We want to talk." And we were like, How the F?
That's every time. How?
Yeah. How the F did this person who, works for the big ballers of the world find our stuff, see it, and then, but again, they're looking for the next thing, right? The next whatever. And it's amazing how many people think that there's a silo there. There's really not. There's really, really, really not. I promise you. And in our industry, we're competing against the biggest companies in the world. Samsung, Miele, Bosch, LG, and these guys are looking for solutions to their problems. And if you can provide that, the returns are crazy.
It's scary.
They're crazy. It's scary.
Yeah.
And that's another point I think we should very much hammer home today. You cannot visualize what that life is like until you get there. And I think this mindset will click with a lot of people. The reason why most poor people can never become rich and why the American dream is unattainable for a lot is because they don't know how to think like that. Like, I know a ton of guys who will go crazy in debt. I mean, like numbers that I wouldn't even be comfortable with because they want to leverage their time so much because they know that like, oh, if I get this right, I can land $100,000 deal. I can land $1 million deal. And when you start thinking like, I know again, cliche point, but like when you start thinking your time is more valuable and you get more comfortable with spending a lot more money, knowing that you're going to land that one and believing it becomes like infectious and it becomes like, for lack of a better term, I want to say like almost like primal. Like, and you have to be like pathologically optimistic about it.
Facts. Optimism is key.
I have a friend in real estate, and so like as everybody knows, like you don't make a salary on real estate, you just going off your commissions. And he told me like in his first like 2 years he didn't learn like anything, and then his third year really started taking off from him. Well, like a year after that, market cooled, things got a little tougher, and he like took a side job to like make his numbers work because he was having a liquidity crisis. Well, like he got the job, worked there for a weekend. He was a busboy. And one of his former clients saw him there. It was like, what are you doing here? And that night he got an email and landed another client. So he quit the job that weekend. And he was like, I forgot my golden rule. Like you'll always find another client. And people get really, 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 really caught up in their own circle. Like, I would say guys even more so, right? We find 4 friends at 15 and those are our best friends for the rest of our life.
Right.
You roll with your boys everywhere. And so like to really realize that like your customer base is way bigger. It like, and I'm sure you see with the podcast, right? You said earlier how you go to that international presence. When you realize that there are, 8+ billion people on this planet and even 350 million people in this country, and a lot of those people have the money to buy what you're offering, it becomes overwhelming because you're like, how am I gonna, like, let's just say you sell 1% of that. Like I sell $3.5 million, worth of stuff. My life is changed. Yeah, exactly.
I'm a very happy man.
Exactly. Right. And it's back to what I said about why poor people can never become rich, because you don't know how to think like that until it happens. Like you don't know how to make that sale until you make your first sale. Right? Yeah. So
that's it. And it's even to speak to your point about the billionaires, the millionaires, the trillionaires out there. We don't realize that so many of these people were once in our shoes. We only really see the limelight, the spotlight, the PJs, the Raris, the mansions. We don't think about they grew up just like we did a lot of times, and they were in the same positions we were in, and they were thinking about what's going to happen, and they were working fast food jobs or retail jobs or customer service jobs. They were there, but they took that risk. They did that mirror talk. They remained optimistic. Yeah. They may have had to quit a job. They may have had to get another job to complement what they do now. And it's just like, it's crazy that sometimes your mind won't go that way. One, because I also feel like optimism too can be very innate in you. And a lot of people tell me that, but I know so many people who are successful, but they're not optimistic. And I know so many people who are optimistic and they're just not successful yet, but that's not to say that they won't, you can't tell them that they won't be the next household name or the next best thing. So I also feel like too, it's here, but if you can't even get it here first, the actions will never replicate and show that same thing, man.
I got a couple of ones that I think you're like. I know Trump is a very controversial figure, but he said this about a guy that he knew. He said when he was first starting out, he would always fly. This guy would always fly first class, even though he couldn't afford it, because he's got his mind right to think I'm the best in the world. One of my favorite artists is Drake. He says, I got a job selling Jabot jeans, right? And then forward from there, Jay-Z put his mixtape. He literally drove around town to put his mixtape out, and then scaled. And obviously, what he did with Tidal is unbelievable. Sure. And it's long-term thinking and long-term optimism. I think the thing is that 99% of businesses fail in the first 3 years. And because most people don't know how to commit for 3 years, to be honest, I never did. It's hard to look past that, and it's hard to keep getting up, and it's hard to, do all of that. And the key ingredient, I know what you said. Elon says, he said, I'm a pathological optimist. Like when Tesla was about to fail in '08, he had tried to sell it to Apple, but he went to Tim Cook and said, but I'm CEO of Apple. And like he said, like one of my biggest flaws is that I'm a pathological optimist. And when he started Tesla, one of his like friends came to him and said, the last successful car startup was in 1934. It was Chevrolet. And he was like, yeah, Tesla might fail. Who cares? I'm trying anyway. And that like
kind of guy.
That like I don't want to say like F it attitude, but like
that's truly what it is.
But
it's just
like,
let me let me be told no, or let me tell myself no. In a sense, don't let anybody else predict your course or anything like that. I feel like you just have to have that.
There's another one. Sea Ray, it's a local boat company here. I believe it's Sea Ray. I apologize if it's not them, but nobody had ever put a gimbal under a boat before. They said it was impossible, and the owner said, "Watch me." Did it, and then they sold crazy, and now they're a monster brand. And like those stories, especially in America, I have a lot of international friends. Like I played soccer in college, and like they just said it's so much different here because of here. We encourage that. Like that is 100% part of our culture. We're like, listen, if you want to go do something, you do it, and you go all in, and we will support you, and we will be there for you. And a lot of other countries, people don't realize like that doesn't exist. And it's I truly think it's foundational to what makes our country so special. Like, right? Like, what's the famous phrase? You can go anywhere else, but you'll never be that person. But you can come from anywhere, and you can be an American. And like, we've got our own problems for sure. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows that. We don't want to get political, but I truly think that like that foundational belief, like what are you told as a kid in America? You're the best in the world. Surely that can't be true. Not every kid is the best in America, but like you grow up with that, like, oh, I can do whatever.
Absolutely.
And it's so powerful. It's so powerful. And like, as I said, my team is international, and like they came here for that. Like they're like, oh, if I'm gonna build a business somewhere, it's gonna be here, and like we're gonna make it work here. And it's crazy, man. Like even some of the conversations that I've had with like some of the people doing it, like working in like space and like stuff like that, like it's unbelievable. It's mind blowing. I sit there and I'm like, how are you working on that?
Right.
Like, how are you that smart?
I love it, man. Yeah. It's been amazing just to really hear this and get a different perspective. But to me, I love this podcast just because it's like, one, it's always right on time. But two, it's just no matter what industry, no matter what upbringing, no matter where you're at in life, man, the principles, the knowledge, the insight, the feedback, it all remains true and holds the same. And you touched on so many different things today that I could think through these 150, 160, 170 episodes. And it's just like, wow, he said that. He said that in a different way. He said that he's in that industry. He said that he did that. They both were on their last leg. They both needed to be convinced before they left their job. It's just certain things that all really just started to come together, man. So I'm grateful for this. I'm grateful for one. I'm grateful that y'all are at WeWork. And we need to take it because who knows how else this connection really would have happened. But I love to see just this journey, and I love to see everything that's going on. But ultimately, how no matter what happened, no matter what went wrong, no matter what went right, no matter what's going to continue to come right and continue to speak to fruition, y'all are always, I'm calling all y'all AB, y'all are all always business in each different sector, in each different place, in each different facet. And I love that about y'all. So before we end this, do you feel like there's any insight that you want to give the people, anything into a future outlook for Kitchenery, or anything that you want people to be aware of, anything that you may want to tease, or because I feel like you've given a lot today. So from gems and everything like that, but any last words or anything you want to really leave the people with before we tell them where they can find you and everything like that?
Always take a deep breath before you make a decision, especially a big one.
He just took a deep breath too, y'all. Pay attention.
It's very, very intentional. So that's the last gem I'll leave you with. But for us, we're going to be the first ones in the market later this year, and right now I'm just selling an idea. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, we have prototypes at work, but the real product that people are going to sell isn't here yet. And so, like, selling an idea it's difficult because you have to get those people to believe without seeing a lot of respects.
Right.
But being the first ones to ever do something, one of my mentors told me this: you can't make wrong decisions. You can make bad decisions, but you can't make wrong decisions because you're the first one to do it. And that one really stuck with me because when you're innovating and launching something, everyone's always worried, like, oh, yeah, one of our favorite phrases is "don't major in the minor." Like, don't get me wrong, the details matter, and you need to pay attention to them, but like, you can't stress everything. It's just not possible. You're human. And when you're launching something for the first time and it's like game day and it's time for it to be here, the amount of emotion, like the emotional buildup to that moment is, I mean, I would akin it to playing sports in college. Like, I remember playing in front of 10,000 people at 19 years old, and this gym, you're like, I was a freshman at the time, and I was like one of the only freshmen playing. And he came up to me and he was like, Collier, he's like, you're going to get a lot of playing time tonight. We were playing the 3-time defending national champions. And he was like, are you nervous? And I was like, trying to play it cool. I was like, nah, coach, I'm good. I'm ready to go. And he was like, you should be. And I was like, why? And he was like, means you care. And that one, that I think about that every day, because if it gets you tingling and it gets you like that, like it means you're putting a lot into it. It means that, sleepless nights, long days, the nutrition, the focus. And what I tell people, and this will be the last one, is entrepreneurship is beyond what you're doing. And like, so I'll give you some quick examples. What I told all my guys, like a couple of my guys, and I tell you, I get on AV about this. I'm like, you can't sacrifice your health. I'm like, make time for your fitness and nutrition and your sleep. Because if you don't, you're going to burn out, or you're going to get sick, and then you're going to take more off time than if you're just taking care of it. And like, so for me, one of the things that we do is I go to the pull-up bar on Bayshore every Sunday. For me, the pull-up bar is one of the most perfect analogies for life. If you had a great week, guess what? Still got to get on the pull-up bar.
Still got to do it.
You had a bad week, guess what? Still got to get on the pull-up bar. Terrible things happen, God forbid your mom died or whatever. Pull-up bar doesn't care. It's still there waiting for you. And it never, ever, ever lets you down. Yeah. It'll make you do the work every single time. And so for me, entrepreneurship is about the full spectrum. You have to believe it and live it in every respect, because you never know. And sometimes I'm a human. I get caught off guard, like when you're gonna meet that like crazy next person. Like, perfect example at WeWork. But I've had some times where like I just didn't feel like dressing nice that day, or I didn't feel like putting it in that day, and I missed that like interview with Fox 13 or like something like that, or I missed the the convention with like mergers and acquisitions, and I was like, God, like what am I doing? Like, it really fundamentally alters like how you think about being on point. And nobody's always on point, but if you can be consistent about being on point, and you're more on point than off, what I always tell my boys when I was their intern coach, everything is 51-49. It's always putting in more than you take, and then there's only one standard, right? Everyone's like, that we could. I'm like, there's only one standard. There's only one. Either it's the standard or it's not. Right. And we try introducing a luxury product. We try to take a lot of our marketing and like sales techniques from all the luxury brands. One of my favorite quotes comes from Bernard Arnault, and he said, "Luxury brands is the only place where you can make luxury profits."
That's a great quote right there. Ooh.
Yeah, he was the first one to really understand luxury business, and that's why he's the man he is today.
I like that.
But like if you think about these types of brands and these products, there's really only two types of selling. Either you're competing or you're selling on status, right? Gucci, Hermes, you name the luxury brand, they're not competing against anyone else because they're selling on status. Either you buy us and you have this, or you do not. You just don't. And that is such a unique place in the marketplace because everybody else is competing, right? Like, let's take the cars, for example. You have Kias, Hyundais, Hondas, Toyotas. They're all competing for that like one little feature, or that one little price, or that one little rebate, and they're trying to get you to squeeze your dollar, whatever like that. But Lamborghini doesn't compete that way. Ferrari don't care. Yeah. They don't care. You're going. You want. Yeah, wow. Yeah, wow. And it really, it fundamentally alters the way you look at yourself and your things. Like, what I always like tell my guys, I'm like, listen, if you don't have the discipline to do push-ups, like, how is someone going to give you $1 million? Like, if you don't have that status when you walk into the room and everybody knows it, then why do they look at you better than everybody else? And like, it really, like, it compounds. It compounds the way you carry yourself, the way everything. And it's hard because you can't really live that lifestyle unless you have the money for it. But like, you can stretch what you do have to make it look better, to get yourself to that guy. Exactly. Absolutely. Exactly. So.
Woo, man! Oh my gosh, this is crazy, y'all. I love, like I said, I just love the timeliness of the podcast always. But I love the live interviews because I really just feel like you get it's just a different energy, it's a different aura, it's a different light, it's a different feeling. Who would have thought that a conversation and setting up some key cards that we work would have turned
my key card
into
wasn't working.
because this key card wasn't working. We ran into some issues, y'all. So it's crazy to really see all of this come full circle, and even the bigger beauty behind this picture is that it's far from finished. It's still in the sketching stages, if you ask me, because even how y'all are thinking, the sky, it's so funny that I used to always say the sky is the limit. And for me, that was just like, wow, the sky, you can't really think of an end point, or you can't really, where do you kind of hit? But one day, one of my boys said, the sky is the floor. We're limitless. And from there, I just started to think totally different. Because if you think about looking up, but if you think about that being below you and now you're everything above you, man, it just had me looking totally different. So, Andrew, one, thank you. Thank you to AB. Thank you to Paulo. Thank you to everybody for everything that y'all are doing in this sector and in this field. But last but certainly not least, please let the people know where they can be added to your million connections on LinkedIn, where they can find you on social media, where they can check out, the products, the ideas, services, everything that you guys are doing from the Kitchenery side of things.
Yeah, so our website is kitchenery.us. On LinkedIn, it's Kitchenery Techstars. On Instagram, it's Kitchenery Inc. Facebook, we're Cordless Appliances. Typically with social media, once you find one, you can find the rest.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, thank you to everybody who is tapping into this episode, whether you joined us on live, whether you joined us from my side, from Andrew's side, from the Kitchenery side of things. If AB's listening to this right now, look, I appreciate just everything, because without every intricate part of this, we wouldn't have been able to really get to this point. But from this point, we're just going to continue to excel, continue to succeed in everything. So we talked about a lot of things today. Some have already happened, some are going to happen, and some will continue to happen. So to everybody tapping in, however you came across this episode, thank you. I love you. This has been another episode of the Down to Business podcast here with Tamar Turner.